Dare great things for Christ. Christ calls us to dare great things. In the marketplace, as well as in the mission field, there has never been a time like the present for the spirit of the Catholic entrepreneur. Now is the time for men and women of great courage and great vision to engage our church and our culture. Now is the time to dare great things. And here is your host as we dare great things, Father Nathan Cromley, the president and founder of the St. John Institute.
When Christians look to grow in leadership, there's no better teacher than Jesus. Throughout the gospel, our Lord is confronted with many of the same situations we find ourselves confronted with today, both at work and in the family. In many ways, his world was not that different than our own. And so watching him lead in his world can help us lead in ours. In this fourth episode in our series, I look at how our Lord focuses in on the heart without allowing his disciples to get distracted with lesser things. Hey everybody, I'm just so glad to be back with you again, and I'm looking forward here to looking closely with you at a scene in the gospel that really interests me. This is in the gospel according to Matthew, and if you go ahead and open your Bibles, take a look here, because it's nothing changed, nothing beats reading the actual text. Because when you're reading this Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14 is just one of the most outstanding scenes where we see Christ leading in the whole Bible. I mean, like all the Gospels, this chapter is just really exceptional because what happens is, of course, John the Baptist dies at the beginning of the chapter. Okay, so this is a big deal because when John the Baptist died, he's not just dead; he's killed at the hands of the ruler of the area, the Jewish ruler of the area. Right, so this is like a kind of betrayal by the authorities of the people of their own nation. Because John the Baptist, everybody loved John the Baptist. He was a man of God. He was seen as a prophet. He had the great crowds. All of Judea and Jerusalem was going out to see him. Okay, that means everybody. And Judea and Jerusalem are the southern half of Israel, but it's where the majority of the population are, and it definitely is a cultural center of Israel. So to say that John the Baptist was a phenomenon is almost an understatement. And so then to have the authorities of the Jews, not the authorities of the Romans, but themselves betray their own prophet and then have him put to death in this terrible fashion, being beheaded at the whim of a corrupt king. And so that moment is just pivotal for the history of Israel. John the Baptist was calling out the coming of the Messiah, and then he was silenced. Well, if they're going to do that to the forerunner, if they're going to do that to the one who's talking about the Messiah, what are they going to do to the Messiah himself, right? What's Jesus going to do here? And so it says in Matthew 14:13, when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. Now, it's absolutely a stunning scene to imagine. Christ hearing about the death of John, and then he goes into a boat by himself and withdraws to a spot on the lake where no one is. Okay, so I don't think he went totally by himself. I think the disciples were with him because we're going to see the disciples are there as the scene unfolds. But even so, what a thing to contemplate. I mean, Christ by himself in a desolate place. Why? I mean, obviously he's grieving John the Baptist, but I think he's also trying to show his apostles something. That, sometimes when you find yourself a public figure of sorts, and even if that's just a really popular person there in your HOA or wherever you might be, when you find yourself in a leadership position socially, the temptation can be to make sure that you live up to what others expect you to feel and be. And sometimes there's a kind of pressure, like, because you realize success, if you're not careful, can look like following the opinions of the crowds, following the opinions of those who are around you. Teach in the way they want you to teach, sell things in the way they want you to sell things, laugh when they want you to laugh, cry when they want you to cry. Don't get upset about this or that. Don't say this or that about what you think about an issue. You kind of go in the middle ground because you realize that if you remain approved by the social setting in which you are, well, you will also remain at the top of it. And so we conform ourselves to the setting around us in order to be successful. And isn't it amazing to see Jesus not do that at all? I mean, this is not the moment, Jesus, for you to go to a desolate place by yourself. This is the moment instead for you to, I don't know, go and protest, organize some sort of rebellion, take over all the disciples of John the Baptist, right? If the setting in which you are is, recommending a certain pattern of behavior, well, the successful person is going to be the one who goes along with that behavior, right? Wrong. That's the whole thing. That's the beautiful thing here. Christ is saying, be careful about how you define success, right? Because success does not, in the eyes of Christ, in the eyes of God, success does not mean that you've achieved the social approval of whatever group you've been called to lead, right? So that you have the nicest house, that you have the greatest Christmas parties, that you have whatever it is that you have, that you have the greatest reputation, that everyone looks to you as a scholar or whatever it might be, where you've been given the accolade of others. This is a good thing. It's not that it's a bad thing, and it can be used, for great good, but it does not constitute authentic leadership. This is the whole thing. It's not because you're the most popular kid in the school that you're the best kid in the school. And this we have to constantly be aware of and on the watch for. So here's Christ, where he's got an open opportunity to make a power play. I mean, if he wanted to take on Herod, he could have, and he doesn't. Instead, he demonstrates to the apostles the importance of feeling, the importance of living deeply, the importance of love. He goes to the heart of the matter and of the situation. And this is just such an amazing example for the apostles. So they follow him, right? So what happens? And this is verse 13 here of Matthew 14. The crowds heard it. They followed him on foot from the towns. Now, so we know what happens here. He goes, the crowds follow around him, and then he multiplies the 5 loaves that he's given, and 5,000 men, this is verse 21, not counting women and children, were fed. So we all know, if there's 5,000 men, odds are their wives are going to be there too. So that's going to be 10,000 people. And then if they all have just one child there, I mean, we're looking at a crowd of like 15,000 people. Now you look at the population in those days of the towns that were around, and this basically constitutes like the whole northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. This is a huge gathering of people. Even in your mind, if you try to imagine what 15,000 people would look like standing in front of you, right? It would take your breath away. And Jesus then to feed all of them with multiplying miraculously 5 loaves and a couple of fish. This is the most astounding miracle he's done to date. This is something that takes everyone's breath away, because even the crowd knows there's no way, there's no baker, there's no town, there's no place where he could have furnished all this food, and it came directly from him. Now, what does this mean? It means that Jesus has just become, in the eyes of this crowd, the most powerful man in the entire area, because he can make them eat at his will for as much as they want. Imagine what the impact was here. How would you at that time have even fed 15,000 people at once? Like, there's no ovens. There's not enough ovens. There's not enough time to make the bread. And there's Jesus who literally makes it instantaneously. He had these people literally eating out of the palm of his hand. He could have done anything he wanted with them. He could have said at that moment, galvanize, follow me, make me king. I'll take over for John the Baptist. We're going to put in a new political system. We're going to do whatever, And that's probably what was on their minds. We know in John 6, when he's recounting a similar episode, that John underscores that the people wanted to seize him to make him a king, but Jesus fled off by himself. And my question for you is why? What does that show us about leadership in Christ? That he denied the opportunity he had to be the king in order to do something that was more important, to pray and be with God. Now, of course, I'm not saying, you should pray and not be a king. I think you should be a king, absolutely. But don't be a king who doesn't pray. You see? And don't think that because you're the king, you're successful. It's because you pray that you'll be successful. And then God will make a praying man a king. Okay. But like, if you just think that it's the other way around, and if we're not careful, and we're going to see Jesus teach his apostles this, if we're not careful, success will get to our head.
Would you like to hear more from Father Nathan? Join the St. John Leadership Network and receive a 2-minute glance at the gospel every Sunday morning right to your phone. To learn more, go to www.stjohnleadershipnetwork.org/member and join for free today.
So I'm reading with you Matthew 14 because this whole chapter just kind of reads like an amazing story here that shows us Jesus going to the heart of what leadership really is. And I think that that's a hallmark for us to understand when we're looking at the difference between Christian leadership and non-Christian leadership. I mean, and there's so much good that's out there and that's not Christian, okay? So I'm not knocking things. I'm not saying that only Christian leadership is the way to go, et cetera. But we're Christians. So as Christians, let's focus in on what we got going on, right? And I'll tell you, one of the big differences is that the Christian does not lead for their own success. The Christians lead for the success of those who follow them and for the glory that gives to God. Right? Which means that you take the I in the equation and you don't put it in the center. For a Christian leader, God is in the center. And because God is in the center, the people that God made and has asked us to serve are in the center. And we are on the outside helping them along. Right? Now, is that the same in the world? I don't know. There might be some good philosophies floating around out there in leadership, but a lot of it's not. A lot of it's all about how you can become in the center and you can bend the world around you. And well, that's not the best way to go about this. And here's what Jesus shows us. Because when he feeds those 5,000 men and women and children, it's incredible. I mean, that miracle would have made him instantaneously the most powerful person in the entire tetrarchy of Galilee. I mean, he would have been a threat immediately to the king. He had his whole army right there. He had 5,000 men right there. It says all he had to do is organize them, and he doesn't. Instead, it's the most kind of a puzzling thing here. If you look at verse 22, Matthew 14:22, he says, immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. Now that's a real puzzling thing to do. Think about it. You're going to put these men, 12 of them, into a boat. Now, the boats at this time, they were not that big. I mean, they were big enough for 12 men, but it would have been a crammed boat. And then you send them away in the evening, so they're going to sail at night, which they would have been used to doing because fishermen, anyway, at that time worked the sea most of the time at night, because that's when the fish can't see the nets. So they were used to sailing at night. But at the same time, I mean, why wouldn't he have allowed them to bask in this? Think about what their role was in this miracle. They were going back and forth from Jesus with loaves of bread for hungry people. And if the bread would have tasted great, by the way, because, I mean, if Jesus made it, bread baked by the angels, this is the bread of heaven right there, like it being given out. So what it tasted great. These people would have been thrilled. They're feeding. So now the crowd are talking with them. The crowd are saying, you're with them. Their heads are being swelled because of the adulation of worldly success. I say worldly in the sense that the success that other people give them. They're the exact same people that they were before. Nothing's changed about who they are. But a lot has changed about how they're being viewed. Right? And this is what you got to look at. Am I looking at my life as a quest to be viewed by others better? Do I see leadership essentially as manipulating the opinions of those around me to make sure that I'm at the top? Right? Or is it a question of who I am? Right? Now that's where the humility of Christ is just so astounding in this. This is a moment when he could have had them follow him anywhere, and instead he sends them away, dismissing the crowds by himself. It's a hard lesson. I'm not saying, of course, to not lead. I'm not saying to not have crowds. I'm not saying to not be king. No. It's just that all of those things are tools that the Christian uses for the glory of God and to help other people to become better. It's only when we're humble enough to be satisfied with our relationship with God and the love that he's given us, that we can truly be a great leader. This is what Christ is showing us. Christ is the Son of the Father. He doesn't need anything else. And so he lives in that relationship at that level and dismisses the crowds. Why? Because he didn't come to be a king. That's why. Isn't that funny? And then it's also kind of interesting that the crowd would have him shift his life course in order to stay where they approve of him. Isn't that another kind of thing that crowds do? Is to say, hey, we need you to do this. Why don't you just change your life's course in order to make us happy? And if you're a slave to the way that they are and to making them happy, well, then you will. And so now you're really literally dancing for them to make them happy, because you, on the other hand, want what they give, which is power and esteem and the glory that comes called fame. Aristotle says that this glory that other people give you is literally the highest material good. So the thing that we will have the hardest time overcoming in our life as creatures or mastering is this desire, this craven desire that we have to be esteemed by others, to be remembered. I'm laughing because I remember I was one time in a city where there was an archbishop, right? And the archbishop was, I don't know, someone probably in the 80s. I don't even remember his name in this city. And I was in the seminary for this place in a back room. So in the back room of the library of a seminary, there was a wonderful sculpture. It was all made of some sort of metal. It was probably very expensive, like a bronze sculpture. It was about 4 feet high of the bust of this archbishop. And I chuckled to myself when I saw it, because I thought, my goodness, if someone were to make a bust of a person, that's kind of like the ultimate thing of glory. You'll never be forgotten. We're going to make your figure be in bronze because we never want anyone to forget you, right? And so you think that would be a major achievement. I'm sure that when they unveiled it, his mother was there, his friends were all toasting him, and he thought, my goodness, what a thing in life that to have a statue made of you, But it was just really humorous because nobody was looking at this statue. They had it in the back room of the library of the seminary where literally nobody cared. You can even have a statue made of you at the height of your life, and in the end, in 10 years, no one will even want to see the statue. This is the thing about fame and about glory, is that it appears that you have success, and in fact, you only have the appearance of success. And the success that you have is totally dependent on the whim of the crowd and their will to name you successful. This is not true success. Christ has something much more profound for you, and that's to be good. The power of truth. The truth of the development of your character. And that's something that's held in the secret you have between you and God and the way that you live with God every day. And this is why Jesus makes his disciples get in the boat and go to the other side, leaving the crowds, leaving the adulation, taking up oars and working in the middle of the night.
Would you like to start your Thursday mornings with a scriptural leadership lesson? Join the St. John Leadership Network, where Father Nathan hosts a 30-minute call.
So if we continue our reading here, Matthew 14,
all 4 U.S. time zones.
It's amazing. Look at verse 22 here. Jesus immediately makes his disciples get into a boat, go to the other side,
and join
and
for
then
free today.
watch what it says. After he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. So now you have 2 things happening that show genuine authenticity. Right? In the crowd, they give you fame because you give them bread. This is not the essence of what makes greatness. Well, man is never truer than in 2 things. Number 1, when he's praying, and number 2, when he is suffering. Right? So Jesus is praying. So he's authenticity. Doesn't matter. The real success point, the heart of the matter is with your relationship with God. And so he goes into that. But the other spot is suffering. And look who's going to be suffering in this story. Look what it says. This is verse 23. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was a long way off from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. It's a scene that really just kind of, it makes you smile when you think about it, because he makes them, it says verse 25, he makes them wait till the fourth watch of the night. Now, if you take a 12-hour watch from 6 to 6 and you divide it up into fours, it's a 3-hour period. So the fourth watch of the night is going to be from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. So these apostles have now been rowing for 6 hours against the wind. Well, why didn't Jesus just change the wind? Right? It's because it's good for them to go against the wind. You're never more authentic. You're never more truer than when you're praying or when you're suffering. And Christ sends his apostles into suffering at this point. Could you imagine being cramped in a boat with 12 men, not able to move, sitting there in the hull for 6 hours as waves 3 to 5 feet are smashing against the front of your boat? The boat's going to be lowered. I mean, gosh, 12 men at 150 pounds a man, that's 1,800 pounds of humanity sitting there in a small wooden fishing boat. That's a ton of weight. And of course, the waves coming over the side, they've got to be wet. And then trying to row, that's because normally these boats only had 4 men in them. So you're only going to have 4 oars. You're not going to have 12. And so you're hauling. And in that suffering, there's a purification. The purification that comes from work. It's the realism of getting back at it again. When you're amidst the crowds and their definition of success, they make you a kind of God. Yeah, well, suffering and work, they make sure that you stay humble. And there's Jesus, who sends them out into the sea and lets them stay there for 6 hours of rowing. I just laugh at it because we don't look at Jesus leading. How is he leading these men? He's leading them by not allowing them to let other people determine the parameters of their success. This is the lesson. And this is so important for us. If we're going to lead the world, we cannot belong to it. We cannot be dependent on the world's adulation if we're called to lead it. We've got to be serving something bigger. Our leadership becomes an act of service to someone higher on behalf of the world, so that through our labors, we can bring the world to this higher place. This is why we're doing it. But you see, there's an inner freedom that's necessary. If you're not free, you can't lead. And so Christ is like, I want you to be free. How do you find that freedom? You find that freedom by finding where you can be satisfied with the inside, satisfied with the soul. Remember what I told you about glory when I said Aristotle defined glory or fame, the opinions of others, as the highest material good. Not the highest good, the highest material good. The thing that beats it is when we emerge beyond the material and touch what is truly spiritual, something that we possess only on the inside of our heart and of our soul, right? And that now suddenly is the realm of the Christian leader. Because the Christian leader is like, you could give me the whole world and it wouldn't fill my soul. All it is stuff, right? And all your fame is a bunch of people's opinions. What is the truth? The truth about being the best I can be. That's what I want. The truth about really being developed, really giving myself. And of course, Christ defines that for us. If you really want to be the best you can be a man or a woman of love. Love defines greatness. And that love is never better, never greater, never more interesting than when it's pointed towards God. So if you point yourself to God and you serve God in truth, even if they don't recognize it, then it's okay. Because in fact, you had that authentic goodness developed in you. And God will then use you as he wants to bless his people in the way that seems fit. But if you lose your sight of that, then you're going to fall prey to serving the opinions of others and not really being able to lead them. Maybe this is why then Jesus comes walking on the sea. Right? In the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, verse 25, walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost," and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." All right, so I looked a little bit at the math of this. When they're a long way out from the land, the Greek actually says not a long way, but it says many stadia. Stadia is a Greek term, and it basically denotes a unit of measurement, about 607 feet, okay? So if he's many stadia, well, 600 times many, let's make it 5, that's 3,000 feet. All right, 3,035 feet. So at that point, you're over a half a mile from the land. Well, if Jesus is going to walk from the land on the waves, the distance at times it takes you to walk a half a mile, 1 mile is 3 miles an hour, but he's on 3 to 5 foot waves. So he's going to be walking about a mile an hour, which means a half an hour. He's walking on the sea as if it was his home. He's not afraid of the wind and the waves. He lives in the storm. And he tells them that since he lives there, they should not be afraid. This is such a beautiful thing. My friends, Jesus redefines success for us. He gets us out of the security of the opinions of others and the land. And he goes onto the stormy seas, makes it his home. Because when your heart is in God, any place you are is home. And you can transform even the storm-tossed waves into a walking path. Because where God is and the soul is in leadership, where you go to the heart of it, well, then it transforms everything else.
Dare great things for Christ.
Share your feedback with Father Nathan. Send us an email at communications@stjohninstitute.org. That's communications@stjohninstitute.org. And visit www.stjohninstitute.org and sign up for our newsletter to receive updates from Father Nathan.